He is here, and I am with the one and only, and dancing to the theme song, soccer rabbi Mark Goodman. Mark, how's your off season been? How's everything been?
Life has been good. Jay Moore, you guys have a banging intro. I really like it. Big fan. Big fan of the show.
Big fan. Big fan of the intro, anyway.
Yeah, we had a nice off season. I mean, in terms of the weather, I'm in Pittsburgh, so it hasn't been super great. But in terms of, and in Colorado, back where all my peoples and my team are, there were some rough days. But in terms of an off season, it was busy for the Rapids. They brought in some players. They brought in some guys that were really exciting. They looked to the future on a goalkeeper, although that guy's still out. So a lot of interesting things going on with the ball club.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of goalkeeper, William Yarborough stood on his head last week after giving up 4 on the road to the Seattle Sounders. Will the real William Yarborough please stand up? You know, how do you evaluate those two performances, in terms of that goalkeeper position?
Well, the math says that Yarborough wasn't super great last year. His expected goals versus goals wasn't very good. It was towards the bottom of the Western Conference, and so I think for a lot of us, we understand why the team brought in a guy by the name of Marko Ilic from Europe, and I think that the idea that maybe Yarborough's best years are behind him is a decent notion. But Ilic started the year first not having the visa. Then he arrived and apparently has a finger injury. So I don't know that we're going to see Ilic for a couple more weeks. Yarborough, he faced 11 shots, 17 total, so 11 on target.
Right.
Saved them all. To be honest, the expected goals that he faced was, I think, like 0.69. So and a lot of the shots were kind of like straight at him. I would say he made 4 really good saves that a good keeper will make, but an average keeper might miss. So he definitely kept the Rapids in the game. And I think overall, one of the things that's hard to figure out based on the Rapids from last year is the defense was so bad that it's hard to tell whether Yarborough was not great last year or Yarborough just had a terrible defense in front of him and really struggled because of that. So I think, to be honest, I think he's a fairly league average goalkeeper. If the rest of the team is solid, we can make the playoffs. And as long as Yarborough puts in a decent year, we're fine. But the question really is mostly for him. Is he even going to be the starter in 3 months, or is he going to be displaced by the new guy?
Yeah, and Quakes are going through similar version of the same thing, bringing in Daniel and currently starting over JT Marcinkowski. You and I were just talking before we went live here about the Almada goals, against Atlanta United, and another one last week had some fans scratching their head as to could the goalkeeper have done better. That's certainly something now both clubs need to figure out in terms of, we got the new guy in, we've got the guy who's been here and has done this, and where do we go? Even Lucci said he's not entirely sure day to day who's going to be the starter right now in San Jose. But let's get back to you guys. So, one of the things that we were talking about as well is you got a couple other injuries. Diego Rubio, a very key part of this team, not quite ready to be able to get into games again. Mark Price may be closer. Talk to us a little bit about the injury situation.
Yeah, so Diego Rubio had some kind of undisclosed knee injury during preseason that required arthroscopic surgery. It was just a scope and clean, and he should be back. They gave a timeline of 2 to 5 weeks, but I'm a guy who had a knee injury many years ago, and when I hear 2 to 5, I assume 5. So that would mean that he's going to be out for the next 3 weeks, and I think that's a decent assumption. And I also don't think that this team believes in rushing it, especially with their designated player, leading goal scorer, most important piece, guy who sells jerseys at this point, because Diego Rubio is really the most exciting piece on the team. The flip side of that is if they wait too long to bring him back, considering they have yet to score a goal in 2023, they may continue to struggle. The replacement for him is a kid by the name of Darren Yappy. Yappy is young. He's 19 years old. He has yet to score a goal in Major League Soccer.
He had one taken back last week.
He had 2 taken back last week.
Wow.
And he was kind of robbed of a third, to be honest, by the goalkeeper. So he's if you're a fantasy player and you like buying low, I think he's a good investment.
Okay.
But if you, in general, he's a solid player. I think my only concern about him is whether he has soft enough feet, in the reception. I think that's one of Diego Rubio's best aspects, is that you can kind of lace a ball into him and make it a little bit inaccurate, and he will settle it and finish. Yapi's a good finisher. Yapi's a big, strong kid. He makes smart runs. He's capable with his head. He has some poaching skills. He just doesn't quite have that soft touch in the final third that is like a next level player thing. He's young though. Maybe he develops it. You also mentioned Jack Price. Jack Price is having back problems. As men of a certain age that you and I are, we both know that backs are tricky things and they usually bounce back. No pun intended. I think he's been on the bench for 2 weeks in a row and unused. He's been kind of running around in like non-contact kind of situations in training. So I think Jack Price could be back this week. He might be left on the bench. We don't really know about that. The replacement for him has been either Ralph Prizzo or Connor Ronan, depending on how you look at the starting lineup. I'll just mention Ralph Prizzo. Prizzo came over from Toronto last year in the Mark-Anthony Kaye trade. Mark-Anthony Kaye was a linchpin midfielder for the Rapids, but I think they knew that they weren't going to make the playoffs and they wanted to sell a middle-aged player for something younger. Prizzo has some upside. He's young. He's talented. He's rangy. He can get around in the midfield, and he has some of the makings of a defensive midfielder. His decision-making is still questionable, and I think the team has yet to really, I think his passing leaves something to be desired. So he's definitely a huge downgrade over Jack Price overall, especially in terms of Price setting the tempo and really settling the team down. And he's always been the metronome, the leader on the field. And without Price, the team did not look great last year for the weeks that he was out. This year so far, they do look a little confused.
So if you're looking at the shots that the team has, surrendered in the last couple of weeks, kind of regardless of the expected goals or regardless of the on target or not, it's been a lot of shots. Is that, is that situation at the 6 one of the leading causes? Do you have concerns about the back line? Boubacar didn't seem to cover himself in glory, at least a couple times that I saw in the Seattle game.
Yeah.
So what is that whole situation starting to look like right now?
So the back line was interesting. In week 1, both fullbacks had a really bad week. So that's Keegan Rosenberry on the right, who's a very talented, experienced player. And on the left, they started a new guy, an Australian international who played for Grenoble 38 last year. Named Alex Gersbach. And Gersbach didn't really look up to the task. He looked like he didn't really know what the plan was out there. And he had some real decision-making problems where he didn't really know when to go or when to stay, when to step, when to drop. And so he was kind of a mess. And that meant that he got taken out of the lineup in week 2 for Stephen Beitashour, who you know very well and who's been around the league and in the Western Conference forever. So, and Beta was fine last week. And so was Rosenberry. You nailed it on the head. The Rapids played Seattle in week 1. They got torn limb from limb. They looked bad from back to front. There weren't too many moments when the team looked like they even belonged in the same league as Seattle. And that was terrifying. That should terrify both of us as guys who cover teams who tend towards the bottom half of the table in the Western Conference. Seattle looked really good and the Rapids looked really bad. The flip side of that is that Lalas Abubakar had a bad game. The first game, this last game, he looked a lot better. He was solid. Abubakar really does a lot of good things. He can clear balls very well. He's big and physical. His reactions are generally good, although sometimes in early season he makes questionable decisions until he gets his timing down. And his midfield closing pace is really, really good. He can run a guy down. And so that's his upside. The guy standing next to him is a guy named Andreas Maxo or Maxo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it yet. I'm sure I'll get it down eventually.
He's got that line through the O in that kind of Scandinavian way.
Right. He comes from Brondby, which also has a line through the O. So I know how to hit Shift and 6 to get that to come up on when I'm typing. But
that's more than I knew.
Right. So Max Show is he's tall, he's talented. The interesting thing, he's playing the left center back position. In the past, the Rapids have always given over the other center back position to someone who would command the passing, and that was Danny Wilson. Danny Wilson is great at long diagonal balls. He's good at passing out of the back. They've given that role to Lalas Abubakar, and so the question is Abubakar up for the challenge of starting the attack from the back? Is he a good distributor? Is he going to help things? And I think one of the challenges that I saw against you asked about shots faced.
Yeah.
I'll answer it a slightly different way, which is my big worry about the Rapids, which what I didn't talk about on our own podcast this week because I let Matt do all the talking, was that they were really uncomfortable, like moving the ball forward, bing, bang, boom, quickly. And they weren't comfortable, like Cole Bassett and Connor Ronan in the midfield didn't quite make that next pass to advance the ball forward. They kind of like made the pass and then took a half second to reestablish what they were going to do, didn't like what they saw, and then passed the ball back. And so there was a lot of passing to the back line and let's reset and start over. And I was kind of like, guys, we're not going to get goals if we probe and then chicken out and recycle, and probe and chicken out and recycle. And so that's a thing I think you should watch, and your fans should watch this week, which is, are the Rapids capable of stringing together a cogent, thoughtful, aggressive, and well-timed attack? And the evidence points right now to no. They've been a team that's been more comfortable on the attack to get a corner kick or to kind of like lope a big ball in over the top, latch onto it, and hope something good happens.
So let's talk about the right side a little bit. Cole Bassett is back from his tour of Europe for a little bit there. Not sure exactly what happened over there, but he's back now. And then you also have a guy who, my goodness, every time he's on the field, he just irks me in some way, shape, or form. He likes to get under people's skin, I think. Michael Barrios. So, just talk to me a bit about that right side. And are you optimistic getting those two back together over there?
I guess I am. I don't know that Cole Bassett is. I don't know that Michael Barrios is the long-term solution at right wing. So right now, our front three, the last two games have been identical from week to week. On and now I'm forgetting. Michael Barrios has been on the right. Darren Yappy, who I mentioned before, has been in
central,
the middle, and then Sam Nicholson has been on the left. And Nicholson is a Scottish international who came to us, and then we let him go at the end of a season and a half, and then he's back with us again. He's kind of holding down the fort until Jonathan Lewis comes back from an ankle injury, we think. We don't think he's the long-term solution at left wing. He hasn't looked super great, but you were asking about the right side. So
we can talk about both sides.
Cole Bassett went to Feyenoord on a loan from the Rapids with kind of a hope to buy. And the manager who brought him on apparently got fired shortly thereafter. He was loaned to Fortuna Sittard in the second division of the Dutch league. And he played like one game, and then he got sat on the bench. He didn't do anything. So he went to Belgium. He went to Holland. He ate French fries with mayonnaise for a year. He didn't play a lot of soccer, and he came back. And I think that was a really not great experience for anybody. I think the Rapids, didn't sell a player who they had expected to sell. I think Bassett didn't really get the experience that he was hoping he would get. And I think he comes back, and the question is, how's he going to react? Is he going to rise to the challenge and say, like, I really want to, prove that I belong at a top level and I'm a game-changing player? Or is he just kind of coming back, having failed there, And is he going to play himself out of a role in Colorado? Barrios is an older player. He's the thing that makes him really valuable to the Rapids is he stretches the field. He has a lot of pace. He can get into that corner, and they'll swing a long diagonal over to him. The entire defense has to shift to his side, and then he can swing a ball back across before anybody notices and create goals. You can watch that play. They'll do that 5 to 10 times a game, and either Barrios will have space to attack, or he'll have the whole defense shifted to his side, and he'll do something dangerous. Bassett and Barrios haven't developed any major chemistry that's worked out because they usually bypass Bassett to get to Barrios. The guy who's really been developing chemistry is on the other side, which is Connor Ronan. And Ronan is a really exciting player. He's capable of putting opponents on the dribble. He's capable of really nice through balls and working 1-2s. The only thing I haven't seen from him is really kind of taking shots or arriving late in the box to clean stuff up. But he's a really exciting piece that the team has not had in the past. So watch for him. I think he'll be an asset to this team that the Rapids should develop, especially if they could figure out how to, grow around him with some of the other players that are not available. The last guy that I'll mention is we're waiting to see whether he gets into the team is Kevin Cabral, who we got for a song from the Galaxy. Cabral's a very fast French international, pacey, charging down the left side. His biggest problem is he has historically not been able to find the net with a compass and a flashlight. So he shoots first and asks questions later. So he's been on the bench for 2 weeks, coming off the bench. I think all he's contributed so far is a yellow card. So I think we're all hoping to see him show his speed and his flash. He also has a chip on his shoulder, having been dumped by the Galaxy after 2 seasons. I would not be surprised if he gets a start over Sam Nichols on the left side, or if they don't try and use Barrios or Cabral as an inverted winger on their non-natural side, which would mean Cabral on the right, Barrios on the left, or vice versa.
Well, you're very, very clearly entertaining your son there. We can hear him,
sorry about that.
Over there. No, it's cool. So a lot of people may go like, is this a gimmick? And I like to say, no, he actually is a rabbi. Tell people a little bit, about being a rabbi. You're in Pittsburgh now. You used to be in the Denver area and cover the team more directly, just like I used to be in San Jose. But also talk to people a little bit about your podcast and your work.
Yeah, sure. Born in Los Angeles, ordained a rabbi in 2006. And then I had postings in San Francisco, and then Denver, and then now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I have a small congregation up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I work for a larger congregation in Pittsburgh where I do things that rabbis do. This morning I led services, and then we had a bris. We had a ritual Jewish circumcision immediately afterwards. So for your video viewers, the books behind me are not props. They actually come. They're shiny and
they're real. They're heavy,
right? But they actually come off the shelf and you can read them, and they're actually in a foreign language. So and that's what I do for a living. I wrote a book a couple years ago that's finally being published after a few years of grinding through the publishing process. And so that'll be fun. It's a spirituality self-help book for everybody. It'll be coming out in probably the next 2 or 3 months. It's called Life Lessons from Recently Dead Rabbis. You do not have to be Jewish to understand it. So shameless self-promotion right here. And
congratulations on it too.
Thanks. And being a rabbi is a hoot and a holler. I mean, I think a lot of us in the soccer writing, podcasting, journalism world really like what we do. And in some dream world, we'd all, be beat writers for our teams and, get invited to the World Cup and sit next to, famous other celebrity sports people. But the reality of the American soccer journalism ecosystem is there's like 10 people who can make a living at it, and the rest of us do it as a side hustle,
we do.
Which is great. And I'm very blessed that I get to write for Pittsburgh Soccer Now, which is the local website. I cover the USL's Pittsburgh Riverhounds. I cover the Pitt women's soccer team. And, what gets real big numbers here is high school soccer. So
Really?
I've become an expert on, girls 3A, Beaver County soccer. That's just a thing that you have to do out here.
That's a different podcast. We'll have to do that a different time.
It's something. Trust me, most of the podcasting you're going to do on high school soccer is going to be interviewing coaches about how angry they are and how bad the refs are.
It's all about the refs.
And I disagree. I think the refs are fine. But anyways, and then when I cover the Colorado Rapids, I have a long and storied history in covering the Rapids going back 9 years, making me kind of a veteran at this point, which is a scary thing to think of. And we have me and my buddy, Matt Pollard, who works with Last Word on Soccer, Last Word on Sports. He and I do a podcast called Holding the High Line, which you can check out on all the places you get podcasts. And then I do the Substack, which is holdingthehighline.substack.com. All of the stuff is on there for free. All of your listeners can pop in there and read my ramblings and musings. And then we have a subscriber tier for anybody who wants to help support the work we do. Because, and we're not trying to get rich. We're basically just trying to pay for the gas to get out to training. For me, it's two airplane trips a year to go see the team. This year, me and probably my younger child are going to go out to Columbus to see the team in May. Columbus is the nearest USL team to Pittsburgh. So that's kind of how we do what we do. It's been an absolute privilege. I've gotten to see the team in many different cities. I've gotten to interview all kinds of players, and it's been a really great blessing. And, one last thing I'll say is an old friend of mine who lives in London is the president of her synagogue. And she reached out and she said, "Hey, we have a lecture coming up." And we were trying to figure out and it's a donated lecture in honor of a member who passed away. And we were looking for a speaker and a topic. And I remembered that you're my old friend and that you're a rabbi. You live in the United States and you cover soccer. And the guy who passed away was a huge Tottenham Hotspur fan. Would you like to come on our London synagogue and give a 1-hour lecture on soccer and Judaism? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I wonder, what are you gonna do in your lecture? And I was like, honestly, ramble incoherently for 55 minutes because you're asking me to sum up, all of my 9 years of soccer journalism and 16 years of being a rabbi in a 55-minute lecture. I just need to make sure I condense it down and simplify. But when you're in the sporting world like you and I are, we can be raconteurs and speak off the cuff on all the cool things we've gotten to do. The neat people we've met behind the scenes, the funny interactions we've had, the awkward moments at training. The all the cool stuff. And I think that'll be much more interesting to a bunch of soccer fans than hearing me give a philosophy lecture on, medieval Jewish thought in Barcelona in the 12th century. Like, I don't think that's quite as exciting as telling him about the time I almost got punched by Michael Bradley. So,
probably not, but maybe you should consider selling that idea on soccer and Judaism as a book.
Ooh, yeah. I know there's a book that I have upstairs called Baseball as a Way to Know God. And so Soccer as a Way to Know God might be a good second book for me. But I think right now in America, the market for that is really small. So small. I need a hookup in England with a publisher.
Well, Mark, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you and entertaining at the same time. There's a lot of talk that happens here where we talk about teams and it's very dry and very straight to the point. And I know when I talk to you, it's going to be a different thing, and I always enjoy it. So thank you for coming on the show. Best wishes this weekend. I don't think the Quakes fans are going to wish you luck as much, but hope you enjoy the game. And
we called this game, me and Matt on the podcast, I called it as a 2-2 draw, and I think Matt called it another 0-0 draw. So I think we're all like in the ballpark of understanding, like, our teams both have a lot of excitement and potential, but they're both kind of like, I mean, I'm really excited just to watch Jeremy Ebobisse do what he does. He's a fun player to watch, but I also really hope that he takes the week off on us.
Well, he scored the last 2 games, so we both know he's probably not going to score 34. Maybe this is the week he does that just for you.
Oh, you're so nice.
So
I don't have that kind of hope based on the Rapids' experiences and records in the past. We usually give other teams the opportunity to score hat tricks on us when they can. So,
well, sometime I think what fans really want to hear from you is we should come on and talk about and commiserate about our different owners, because they both got voted kind of low in that Athletic article recently in terms of
not ambitious,
not the least ambitious owners maybe in MLS, but we'll see how it goes. But Mark, again, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll talk to you again a little bit later in the season.
An honor and a pleasure, Jay Moore. Take care, brother.
All right, man. Take care, Mark.